I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. So now today is going to be a pretty big day because we are going to gain access to creative items. Our first set of creative items, actually. And all of that is going to come from the creation of the final star. And last episode, we ended up making the final star shards and all of the other prerequisite stuff to be able to make the actual final star. Now, the way I've designed this pack is so that way, once you've crafted your first final star, you can kind of choose what creative item that you actually want to use. But let me tell you, at this point, there are some creative items that are way more powerful than others. And so today I plan on unlocking the potential of some of those creative items. And we're going to be expanding on our EMC and making it easier for us to craft even more final stars. So with that being said, it's now time to probably actually craft said final star. So let's take a quick look in our quest here and see what is required of us for this star. So we have the final star shards, and we have this section right here that explains a little bit. It says, after meticulously gathering enough final star shards, you embark on the precision assembly process, infusing such shards with the essence of the raw hyper experience. With each shard carefully aligned, you merge them seamlessly into a complete final star, unleashing a surge of unparalleled creativity and boundless potential in your Minecraft world, essentially exploding the EMC into the world, giving you access to creative items, which would be the ultimate power in this world. So bear with me on the voice cracks. I know my voice probably sounds a little bit odd. I am still recovering from being sick. Now for this, you do need a bottle of hyper experience for the quest, even though you're not really going to utilize the bottle in the craft. It is here just to represent that you do need this, but we will get that here in a second. It's actually super easy as a part of setting up this assembler. Now, setting up this assembler can look kind of daunting, but it's honestly not too bad. I'm going to show you how to easily loop this whole setup to make that 6-time loop very, very simple, because it's something that we also need to keep in mind. This needs to go through 6 times, meaning that it is going to use all of those resources at the top 6 times and the amounts that are required for those. Now, this doesn't have to be 6 wide. You can actually make it 7 wide and leave a single space in the middle, but it actually fits perfectly in this little 6 wide area that we have here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is all you need. Just drag a belt across like that. And we're going to set this up exactly the way it is set up here. Even though technically you don't have to set it up exactly like this, you could have 2 of the presses on the end if you really wanted to. But I'm going to do it just the way that it has set up there. So beautiful. We have our press right here. And on the end, we also have another press. So that'll look like this. And then we're going to have 3 deployers that are going to go just like so, right here. And then we're going to have a spout that's going to go right here. And this is our assembly process. Now I want this rotating to the right. So I want the process to run to the right. So over here, I'm going to place a depot. This is what's going to allow us to collect our items, but it's also going to allow us to loop our items easily later on as well. And then on this side, I'm going to place a depot a little bit higher up, and I'll explain why I'm doing that here in a minute. But I just want it a little bit higher so that way we can get the items back and pull items off of this with a funnel. Now, I guess we should go ahead and get this all powered up as well. And I'm going to break through the wall right about here. Should be fine. Now, it is going to break through the wall on the other side, and I'm going to have to kind of cover this up, I think. Or just not really worry about it. It really doesn't matter all that much. But on the back, I'm going to break through this wall. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place some of my favorite blocks from Create, the encased chain drives. These are just so good. So we have our encased chain drives. And what I could do is there's another type of chain drive called an encased chain cogwheel that is from Create Connected, which is in here, which is honestly even better. And so what I'm going to do for these is I'm just going to replace these. And what these have connected together is a cog in the middle, which allows me to, instead of moving this back and needing to place like another section out here, what I can do instead is I can just have it connected directly to the bottom like this. And these are actually connected together and will spin this area up here, meaning I can just place a motor right here on the back. And you know what? The more I look at this, the more I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to place the motor back here on the back. And I'm going to also move my chain cogwheels back here as well. That way they don't have to be on the side. Oh, perfect. So I'm going to place the motor on here, and I'm going to have to get a gate, and we will kind of figure this out. How am I going to get this spinning? So is this spinning in the right direction? By default, no, but everything is spinning, which is good. So we'll just reverse the direction, like so. And I'm going to actually set this to 128 for right now. I actually don't want this to be at the fastest speed, just for a little bit of dramatic effect. So with this up and spinning, I now just need to worry about getting the items into our deployers. And for this, I have it set up for future automation. Right now, I'm not going to be able to fully automate it just yet. But I can go ahead and at least get the items inside and also get these drawers locked up. So I did go ahead and place some universal pipes. I like them because they're just darker colors. But it looks like we need to place it in the order that I have listed here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of those placed in, these placed in, and we need 6 of each, by the way. And then I'll use my configurator to lock them. So that way, not only do we see what we have in here, it's going to give us a visual representation later on. Now, as far as hooking up our spout goes, what I should be able to do is just connect this singularity tank directly up and use an entangled block for this, just to easily get the fluid over here. And I can also use a pipe for this as well. So here we go. We have that set up. I'm going to go ahead and have this pull, and that's going to send over here. And what I can do is I can grab a bottle, and this is where we're going to actually get that hyper experience that I was mentioning earlier. I should be able to just drop it right here, and that will get that filled up so that way we can have it for our quest. And that should be everything. Oh, it does have 4 deployers listed here. I think that's a mistake on my part when making the quest. And there we go. I crafted 4 more, even though that quest I'm going to change to 3 for the next update. But either way, we have everything now ready to go. So now onto the fun part. How are we actually going to loop this around? So that's where these depots are going to come into play. So when this finishes online, it will actually deposit onto the depot. And what I want to do is I then want to pipe this item, but only pipe this item if it is not the final star shard. So if it is not, then it will loop back over here and will end up in this depot, allowing me to send it on through the belt again. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself nice and small. There we go. And I should be able to pass all the way down here. And then I'll be able to get this hooked in. So perfect. So what I'm going to do is just use some regular universal pipes to make that super simple. I'm also going to disconnect it from the belt line, and you can connect this directly to the belt, but I would advise not doing that, as it can cause some wonkiness sometimes with the actual operations that are happening on the belt if a pipe, for example, is pulling directly on it. So it's just something to note in my experience. All right, so now that I have that, actually I do need to leave that open because we have to configure this side. I should be able to now place a upgrade in here. So underneath the items, I'm going to put an advanced specifically and make sure this is in blacklist mode. And so what I'm going to actually blacklist is the final star itself. And so that should mean that this pipe should never pull a final star out, meaning that the final result will end up right here when it's fully finished. And then of course we need to send the item off of the depot, so I can do that by simply placing a funnel. And yes, you can use an andesite funnel. The only limitation on an andesite funnel is it will only output 1 item at a time, which is perfectly fine here. But keep in mind, this can actually accept 64 items at a time that is on a belt. It'll accept all the items that are running on the belt. So funnels are actually really, really useful. I would go into more detail, but I've covered create stuff a ton in previous mod packs. I definitely recommend checking those out if you haven't already. Create is such a really cool mod. But with that, I think we're about ready to make our final star. So I guess without further ado, let's take out one of our colossal star omegas that we have, which takes a huge chunk out of our EMC, but we're not going to have to worry about that in a minute. And I'll set all of these to make sure they are sending into the appropriate deployer, just like so. And then last but not least, we just need to drop the item onto here and it will start. And notice there is a custom item for this process. Oh, it is so good. And we are now making the final star. And I have to say, while this is making, I spent a ton of time working on this mod pack and putting it together. And I have loved seeing the responses from all of you guys in just playing it and enjoying this. Like, you guys have really seemed like you enjoyed this pack. And I tell you what, I have had a blast creating and playing it with you guys, and just all of the responses from you guys and the helpfulness. Thank you guys so much. Like, it really does mean the world to me that you guys even decide to play this, like, or watch the videos that I make. I really do appreciate you guys. But here we go, the final star. And voila, we have not finished the pack. We're not actually finished, believe it or not, because this is not the end game. This is just sort of the taste of the end game, because the end game is right here, the Tome of Knowledge. Are you winning, son? Yes, this is ultimately what we would want to make, which does require the top tier library, and it also requires a few more final stars. So, in my opinion, it is definitely worthwhile making some of these creative items. Two of the most powerful items, in my opinion, outside of the creative power, is going to be your creative chemical tank and also your creative fluid tank. So guess what is going to be the first thing that I make? Of course, the chemical tank, because that is going to give us 2 infinite amounts of antimatter. So before I go and make that chemical tank, let's head on into our mechanism area, fly on up here, and let's get started with producing this. So I need a gate here to power a combiner, and I need a chemical tank, and it has to be the highest tier chemical tank. So a simple autocraft here makes that incredibly quick. And then we combine the final star in the combiner with our ultimate chemical tank. Oh, this is so good. And this, once this process is finished, let's go ahead and make sure we put our gate on here. This will generate a creative tank. And I'm going to show you how to actually utilize the creative tank because it can be kind of hard to understand initially. How do you even use this thing? And this is where our handy dandy gauge dropper comes into play. So all I have to do is wait till there's a little bit of antimatter in here. And then now I have 1 millibucket of antimatter. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to shut off my reactor over here, because we are actually no longer in need of this reactor, because we no longer need to produce antimatter, because now we have a chemical tank that is creative right here that we can have output to the bottom, and we can actually give it this material. So all I have to do is just right click it, and now it says antimatter in infinite supply. And so on the bottom underneath the gases tab, we'll set that to output, auto eject, and this is now receiving infinite amounts of antimatter, allowing us to produce a ton, and I mean a ton more. Now, if I want to make more of this and make it faster, I can just stack these machines on top of each other, and yeah, that will work very, very nicely. Look at this. Oh man, it is really eating that power though. I think some energy upgrades would really be helpful. Can this even accept energy upgrades? Oh, it can't. So you can't upgrade this at all. It just is what it is. So I did decide to go ahead and set up another one. You can see how the stacking is going to work. Of course, I have this ugly point on here because this is consuming like 4 million, and there's actually not a gate that supports that amount. The max it goes up to is 2 million RF per tick transfer rate. So yeah, we are stuck with points for these. But the point on here is on the bottom. I can't really fit that one in here, but it does look pretty cool. And I can just continue to stack these up as high as I want to go in this room, you know, and we can produce antimatter pellets very easily as well. Just place a crystallizer next to this, and we have as many antimatter pellets as I would ever want. Now, I wanted to set out to actually like somewhat automate the final star shards, so that way we can kind of automate this process a little bit more. And what I ended up doing was using a timer on 120 ticks, and then a pulse extender set to 15 ticks, and then these set to 15 ticks on the delay here, and that seems to actually work perfect. And then I'm using an advanced item collector with final star shards on the whitelist, and it's putting it inside this barrel. And what I want to do is I want to use an entangler to pull those items out. So let's entangle this barrel. And then what I can do is I can store my shards inside of this barrel by placing it up here. So I'll just grab another pipe, and I'll just simply make sure those shards are getting sent into here. So we don't have to worry about them backing up anymore. They should just start to send like that. And now I think I can do this for the white, let's see, the white matter here. I want to take that and this one, and I think this supports it. This supports, let's see, an EMC value of 1.5 quintillion, which, yes, it will definitely work here. So I'm going to replace these for this automation to make it a whole lot easier. I'm going to go ahead and take this barrel, and I will use a MK15 EMC link. We should be able to set that value, and that should start to fill that container up once, of course, I open this up. And then we got to do the same thing for the white one over here. And that should be pretty straightforward. Beautiful. Okay, and then set those to pull. And you can see these are all now filled up and ready to go. Now, the only thing we don't have infinite supplies of yet for this is the hyper experience. And that's why my next thing I want to make that is creative is actually a creative tank. Because I should be able to store this hyper experience inside of a creative tank and essentially replace this singularity here, and we won't need this operation from create running anymore. So now that the dramatic effect is over, let's go ahead and ramp this all the way up to 256, getting it going as fast as possible. And we'll go ahead and grab another Omega. Now I have the ability to make 10 of them in here, and we'll drop this in, and look how quickly now we can actually make final star shards. And technically they can be made now on request. Well, as soon as I have this in infinite supply, right? So that is going to be the only limitation there. Oh, it's just so good watching this do its process here. And there's another final star. And yes, I need to go ahead and make a tank. And this is going to be our creative tank. So that is going to be the same process as our chemical tank. We need an ultimate fluid tank for this. And we need to combine it inside of our combiner. Let's head on up. And put it into the combiner, just like so, and we will combine our final star shard here with our tank. Oh, this is so good. Okay, this is what makes this pack so good. I think I love getting to the end of packs, but I typically don't enjoy the creative items at the end of packs because there's just no use for them. But in this, you can continue to expand your EMC empire and continue to do cool things and have a reason to do so. And there's also a plan for an update for this pack that is going to expand on what those in-game things are going to be and kind of tasks that you can try to strive for utilizing these creative items. So let's go ahead and replace this right here with the creative fluid tank here. And I'm going to use a gauge dropper on this. I think I can use a gauge dropper, actually. Oh, you know what? I might actually have to pipe into this to set its value. So that's just a simple pipe. Let's get that in here. And let's see. I guess, you know what? You can actually fill a gauge dropper up with a regular tank as well. So that is something you could do. You can just have it go into a tank. But I think if you just send fluid into it, it does. Oh no, that's right. If you send fluid into it, it just voids it. So we were just voiding our fluid here. This is where I've got to kind of remember how to do this. I think that I can use a mech tank like this, a regular one, and then we'll send a little bit of this fluid in here, just like that. That should be more than enough. And then we use our gauge dropper to pick up some of that fluid, and then we can use the gauge dropper in here to set the unlimited fluid. There we go. And so now it is set to an unlimited amount of hyper experience. So no longer do we need this setup or this setup or this hyper experience automation running, even though I am just going to leave it until it fills all the way. Now there is just a few more things that I need to do to fully get this automation up and rolling. And that is I'm going to need this EMC link, for example. Let me get that placed right here. I need this sending the faded matter blocks into this automatically. So I'll set that. And then that should now have those. But we are going to need TNT automated because otherwise we're just going to have items building up like this. And that's not a good idea. So let's do an EMC link, like a regular one. And I should be able to place that like directly on the side here. Maybe. There we go. Just like so. Beautiful. And then we'll set that to TNT, the tiny TNT specifically. Beautiful. And now that should fill with tiny TNT. And I think, by the way, this will all blow up here. And it does all turn into shards. Yes, and they were all transferred, I hope. But if not, there we go. This is now fully ready to rock and roll. Beautiful. Look at that. And these should just continue to build up. So now for the fun part. I want to take this setup here and I want to automate it with applied Energistics. So I want to be able to request one of these final stars. And to be able to do that, it's going to require a little bit of jankiness, but we're going to get it done. Now, because I've only used 4 channels on this side, I should be able to just use 1 channel actually for this automation. So I'm going to run a cable underneath all the way down under here, which is going to connect to this depot. And we should be able to send items directly into this from a pattern provider. Now, our pattern provider, we're definitely going to want to make sure it is set to the lock crafting until it receives the item back. And so how are we going to get the item back into this, you may be wondering? Well, that's where we should be able to entangle this depot right here. So using some of that fancy entangled technology, I can go ahead and do this, link this right here. And so I can set this up in a way, for example, like right here, I think, or in the back. You know what? There's not a great way to make this look that good. So you know what? I'm going to put the entangled block right here, just like so. And then we can entangle that depot. And so what we should end up being able to do is in the back, we can use a pipe. And this is where we're going to have to set another filter, right? So let's go ahead and make an advanced version. And this one will be set to, I believe, whitelist, right? We're going to have it set to whitelist. So let's change that mode to pull. And then we'll put this in here. And we need to make sure it is set to whitelist. And we're going to whitelist it only being able to pull the final stars. And that will send that back into the pattern provider once it is done and complete here. So this technically should allow us to automate. So all we have to do is make a pattern, and this is where our pattern gets a little bit weird, but our final star is actually only going to contain a colossal star omega and nothing else. And it's just going to return a final star once our finished operation is done. And that is one way that you can automate create. It is a little bit more complicated doing this with refined storage, but there we go. So that is the process. And so now I can go, okay, I want a final star, and I will request that. And it says it's missing a colossal star omega. We should have them. We have 21 of them actually. So I wonder why this is saying we don't have them. You know what? It might be another one of those things that we might have to go into the pattern and we might have to place this in ourselves by hand, pulling it directly out of our inventory here to set said pattern. So I'm going to place that back in here, like I said, and then we will hand place this being pulled directly out of our inventory, re-encode that, and let's see if this works now. Final star, select. Oh, and it still says it's missing it. Very interesting. Now, this is an interesting issue, and I don't think this is anything that, of course, is related to the pack. It is something that is related to applied Energistics and how the ProjectE or extended ProjectE client stars are sort of handled in auto crafting like this. So unfortunately, I don't think this is going to work. Did a little bit more research and don't think that that is going to be possible. So I'm probably still stuck, unfortunately, with just crafting these by hand. I could use a level emitter and an exporter and always keep like one or so many in stock. But yeah, I don't really think that that's 100% necessary. I don't know. This was just kind of a cool project that I wanted to do. But of course, if you guys have any suggestions, that's where I learned the most. So of course, comment down below if there's a way that you know of getting this to work. Maybe I'm overlooking something. Now, you know what? The more I was thinking about this, the more that I was thinking about, I could use this with a level emitter actually. And what we could say is, for example, if we have like more than 10 quadrillion EMC, right? Or we can use that certain value. We can have a level emitter emit a signal that allows our export bus to work. And so what it can do is it can send an item into here. Now this of course is looping random item, but we can control our level emitter with our cables here. So let's get a cable and let's go ahead and try this. I kind of want to, it's easier to like do it than it is to fully explain. Let's see. I just need to make sure I can shut this off with a redstone signal. And that's kind of the harder part, right? Is getting the level emitter in the correct position to do that. Let's see. Right here would be a good spot. It needs to be facing into this in some way, or like for example, it needs to be like wrapped around, kind of like this. If I pull that back off, actually, use our network tool. If we wrap this around and put the level emitter right here, that should emit a redstone signal back into this. Actually, you know what? I don't know if this actually transmits a signal into this entire block. But if it does, that would actually work really nice. Now, for our exporter to work with that redstone signal, we actually need a redstone card in order for this to function. So this redstone card allows this exporter, for example, to only send items under certain redstone conditions, which we can define right here. So we can set it to, what's the default on this, right? This is emit when levels are above or equal to a certain limit. So for example, if we can test this out, we can say like cobble. Actually, no, cobble's a bad idea. Anything that we have a low quantity of, actually, that we can easily craft more of, right? Like some leaves. Oh, actually, no. Like this, for example, this seed, right? So a good way to test this, we have 2. So we'll say, we'll specify what to extract. And then we'll say, hey, emit a signal if there is more than 1 in the system. And then we'll have this, you can see that went off. We'll have this only work with a signal, so active with signal. So if this works, which it doesn't, that should have sent a single seed. So I have to have this level emitter in a different location here. I'm going to have it like wrapped around, which is going to be kind of ugly. And man, the more I set this up, the more I'm like, I really wish there was just like a level emitter card in here that you just put it in here so it saves on space. It doesn't look so darn ugly. All right, anyways, I'm going to pop in here and I should be able to line myself just like this. And then we'll do the same thing. And that should send a redstone signal to that. Even though it may not appear like it's going to, it should. I guess we could also do this if we really wanted to. We can set our cables up like so. And then just to make sure we put that there. I don't think that's necessary, but anyways. So I will grab out the stars. And let's see. We have 28 in here. So let's just say if we have more than 25 of these, emit a signal. 25. So if there is 25, emit a signal when above or equal to maybe I can't do this because the level emitter can't even detect that this exists in our storage. Okay, I was completely wrong. It does work, but you can't use the item directly from in here. Instead, you have to drag this item into here in order to get this to work. I really hope that's also not the solution to solving our crafting problem, but it might actually be. But anyways, at least we'll have this setup going. As you can see, it is emitting a signal. There is more than 25. And then what we'll do is we'll tell this, we'll leave the same settings we had, and we'll say send, and that should send 1 out, right? Just like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some fancy work here, and I'm going to use that entangled block just like here. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and remove this temporarily, put my import bus in, and then I'm going to set this to only pull in final stars. And so what should happen is that should pull the final star off of here, hopefully. If the importer works correctly, there it goes. And so this should just continue to loop until all of the final stars are complete. Oh, that should work. And that'll just constantly keep final stars in stock whenever our values up here end up going over a certain amount of EMZ. Now, I also managed to find a way to clean this up a little bit and make it look a little bit nicer. by simply kind of consolidating this all into one block space. And then I can use my facades here to make this look a whole lot nicer. There you go. And it's as if it doesn't even exist. And so now with this setup, I have essentially automated the final star. And I can actually say that it is actually automated because as our EMC goes up, this essentially is doing an EMC check. And once there is an abundance of EMC, then it will send the item to make a final star. So all it is kind of just building up more infrastructure, and we can make these incredibly fast. But at the moment, I now have everything I need. I can make already some creative items with the final star shards, and I already have like 6 final stars built up right here. Now, we are going to need quite a few final stars in order to make all of the creative items and also make our Tome of Knowledge. And what does the Tome of Knowledge do, you might ask? Well, it unlocks all unknown EMC-able items. So anything that we haven't already put into the system to learn, it will then teach us everything that we haven't already discovered, which is honestly pretty huge. There's a lot of items in here that can be learned, and you can learn them all by hand if you really want to, but if you do it this way, then you don't have to worry about all that, which is really, really powerful in my opinion. Now, there's still a lot more for us to do, so definitely be sure, if you haven't already, to click that subscribe button, and of course, give this video a huge thumbs up. This pack took a lot of time to kind of put together and develop, and also a lot of time to sort of play and get all of this testing done. It has been a huge endeavor. And like I said, if you did enjoy or got any kind of enjoyment out of this, make sure you got that subscribe button clicked. And of course, comment down below, what's your favorite part of this mod pack? As I would love to hear from you guys, of course, down in the comment section below. And of course, that is going to be it for today's episode. And with that being said, it is now time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And of course, that amazing thanks is going to go out to Atomic X. Thank you so much for your amazing support in choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. And of course, this entire building covered in signs. I mean, I appreciate you guys so very much. You guys mean the world to me, and honestly, what allows me to make content like this and not have to fill it with embedded ads, to be fair. So thank you all so very much. And of course, thank you for watching today's episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!